Good afternoon to everybody, and thanks for joining us in this webinar. This is the webinar of a series that we started in 2020. Sometimes we dedicate webinars as this one to topics that we believe have a particular relevance for our clients, brands and agencies. The first one was dedicated to the effects, the long-term effects of the pandemic, and we did it when the pandemic was just started. Then we had another one related to China and South Korea, so trends and insights impacting that region. And now today we speak about outdoor, which is a sector that has been gaining relevance in the last years, and that now is really exploding, reaching many new targets. And so we will highlight some of these new needs and new lifestyles in relation to outdoor. Quick introduction of the panelists that you see. I am Erich Giordano, Head of Business Development Italy for Nextatlas. So what I do is mainly building relationship with clients and partners. Together with me today we have Elena Benzo, representing AMBIN Ski, that is our partner in this webinar. So thanks for joining us and for participating to this webinar. Then we have Marina Tamie Camicado, which is trend researcher in Nextatlas. So she's part of the team that translates the data analysis performed by our AI and translates them into information that can be used, is actionable for brands and agencies. Marina will be assisted also by Daniele Galloni, our head of data and AI, which will tell us a bit about some of the data that we will see in the presentation, how we extract meaningful information from our analysis. A few words about Nextatlas, since I see among the participants also people that is the first time in touch with us. Nextatlas was developed some years ago as a artificial intelligence that has the goal of detecting trends before they become mainstream. So it's a technology that detects weak signals out of conversations from more than 300,000 industry innovators all over the world, that are people that are talking about different topics such as design, such as food, such as sport, of course, and many other industries. What they have in common is that they anticipate these profiles that we reach on Instagram, Twitter, and so on, anticipate lifestyles, talk before the majority of new products and services. So they are really interesting to be observed and analyzed in order to detect the phenomena before they reach the majority. I have a question here for Daniele, because analyzing millions of posts and data every day is quite a huge amount of analysis. So how can we extract meaningful information and weak signals from this huge analysis?
Thanks, Erich. Well, given the millions of topics and subtopics discussed on social media, it would be literally impossible for a human to trawl through that information and investigate each one and decide which ones are interesting signals. So this is the core of what our main AI engine does. Basically, its job is to analyze all terms and images inside our community on social media. And of those with sufficient statistical relevance, we run an AI, we need to recognize the content which is considered most interesting. So this could be concepts related to each other that are all rising in tandem, or it could be new connections between industries which had previously been unrelated, or it could also be early signals of consumer behavior which is shifting and crystallizing on new habits, so which would be in response to maybe changing external environments. And this gives us a sort of score of salience on each topic. We can define and measure how interesting they are likely to be for us. And these are then proposed to our expert trend researchers, such as Marina, to be validated and further contextualized before ultimately ending up on the platform.
Thank you, Daniele. Of course, today what we will see is mostly the front end, so the final deliverable of this analysis that, as Daniele said, is translated into meaningful information by the trend research team. So it's really a combination of a quantity and qualitative analysis. Before starting the ride through this outdoor scenario, I have a question also for Elena Benzo, representing our partner in this adventure, AMBIN Ski. So AMBIN is an emerging brand of ski and outdoor. Why did you decide to propose us to dedicate this webinar to outdoor?
Well, thank you, Erich, first of all. Well, why AMBIN with Nextatlas? Because we strongly believe in open innovation. We take advantage of cross-business models and market research and cutting-edge technology and advanced AI, not only for strategical purposes, but also to develop new material and devices connected with skis world. AMBIN, since 2017, produces tailor-made, made in Italy and premium skis, which are considered not as an end in themselves, but as a means to an end. For us, what matters is the experience above the performance. We want to create a community of shared value, and moreover, we are working to become a big corporation. We wanted to promote this analysis with you to detect new emerging trends and behavior coming from the outdoor sector with a unique method and a unique AI such as the one of Nextatlas.
Thank you very much, Elena, and thanks also to Alessio Giachin, co-founder and CEO of AMBIN, for giving us this idea and for collaborating also in the realization of this webinar. So before leaving the floor to Marina and Daniele, just a quick note. You see that at the bottom of the screen you have a Q&A button. So we invite all the participants to submit their questions. And at the end of this session, we will have 10 minutes for a Q&A, and so we will be really glad to answer to your questions. And now I leave the floor for the presentation. Enjoy.
Thanks, Erich, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. So for the next 45 minutes, I will present to you some of our main findings of a very extended and elaborate research that we have recently done about the outdoors and its latest emerging trends. So as you all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected our lives in so many ways. Over the past year, our routines, behaviors, priorities, and preferences have drastically changed. And here, we are going to highlight some of the key changing points with a special focus on the out of home and outdoors environment that we have identified thanks to Nextatlas with signals detection technology and also with some support of some external data. So first of all, doing homework, workouts, cooking or baking, and even making home improvements have emerged as very popular activities during the lockdown waves, as a way to relax, distress, and recharge ourselves. But as governments have slowly begun to loosen the mobility restrictions, a greater desire to leave the outside world has also emerged, putting all of our attentions into the outdoors. During the warmer months of 2020, at least in the northern part of the world, outdoors activities such as hiking, fishing, and camping have gained unprecedented popularity. And today, even if we are approaching now the peak of the winter season, the appreciation for outdoors living shows no signs of slowing down. Just like during the summertime, people are very much into trying new winter activities for the first time. So with all these hints, we can conclude that last year's social isolation and mobility restrictions have made the outdoors, and especially the natural environment, the natural spaces, one of the most desirable environments, making it a very fertile territory for new hobbies and activities for both new enthusiasts and winter sports experts. To introduce these new behaviors and macro trends that we have found out, here are some 6 issues and pains that are driving the growing interest to the outdoor living. The first 2 ones, confinement and mobility restrictions, have recently helped the growing interest in staycation and close to home tourism or exploration. Also addressing to anxiety-related issues, as well as the need for physical activities, were and still are crucial pain points during this pandemic. And finally, the desire to self-improvement physically and health and mentally has also grown during this year, mainly to fight against also the growing work and study fatigue. So in this webinar, we are going to present one current outdoor scenario that we have noticed that is already moving towards a more mainstream audience, as well as 3 new macro scenarios about the outdoor livings that we have spotted and that we predict will be the next future for this environment. The first point is how the outdoor living has gained a new luxurious perception. Then we move on to explain how the wellness-centered mindset is seeing the outdoors as a new form of escapism. For the third chapter, we're going to present the emerging alternative and accessible winter adventures that are emerging, and they're moving away from the traditional downhill and snowboarding skiing that address all types of winter enthusiasts. And last but not least, we will focus on how the winter sport industry is moving to address the growing demand for sustainable practices and initiatives to fight climate change. That is a very beloved topic among the people that practice winter sports. So over the past few years, Nextatlas has noticed a great shift on the perception of what luxury actually means. In 2015, our trend Luxury.com had already identified how digital detox and disconnecting from the real world were seen by many as a new form of luxury. Then 2 years later, Inconspicuous Luxury, another one of our macro trends, explained how it became more and more associated with immaterial goods. But nowadays, as staying at home and social distancing became fundamental practice to fight the virus, the access to the external world, and more importantly to nature, has turned into one of our most luxurious activities. In this context, the luxury sector has been tackling more and more the outdoors and the natural scapes, whether if it's for product aesthetics or for branding and communication initiatives. Focusing on this scenario has never been so appealing. Our first hint that evidences this shift of perception was the tag Mountainlife among luxury lovers that has grown 227% in the past 18 months. Taking a look at the timeline, we are able to notice that since the beginning of 2020, the tag has gained more volume, or in other words, has been used more by the luxury lover communities in their social media posts. Our AI predicts that the tag will continue to steadily grow in popularity for the next 6 months. Our top industries widgets that you see at the top shows that there's a predominance of travel-related posts, but other industries such as fashion, sports and leisure, home and interior, and industries have been also frequently mentioned. For each of these industries, we can find on our platform specific content related to the theme called insights. In the travel industry, for example, we have identified that wilderness travels has become the perfect solution for exploring places while staying virus-free. In the fashion industry, on the other hand, we have noticed that the outer brands such as North Face and Timberland that are very popular nowadays, thanks to the hype of the Gorpcore. Then there's a specific insight explaining how the luxury lovers communities are falling in love with some outdoors activities. And finally, how the mountain life aesthetic is also inspiring home and decor with an interior design style called cabin core. So before we move on to the first section of the future trends, I would like to also present some of the most recent initiatives from fashion and outdoor apparel companies that confirm the trend that have created a buzz over the past few days. So here we have a mood board with some of the last year's most relevant collaborations or partnerships between high-end and streetwear brands with performance-driven sports brands. The latest and most viral one was the collab between Gucci and North Face that combines the heritage and the maximalist aesthetic of the Italian brand with the North Face expertise in performance gear. The collection doesn't only focus on colorful and playful apparel, but also launches accessories and even camping gear such as tent and sleeping bags. Instead of collaborating with other companies, as the previous brands have done, some luxury brands have developed whole collections focused on performance sportswear and more specific on winter sports. So following the success of Moncler Genius collections that have boosted the company sales by 19% in 2018, Burberry, Fendi, and Dior have recently launched accessories such as goggles and helmets, clothing, and even ski and snowboard equipments. So now we introduce the first chapter of our future trends. After months of severe home isolation and following the ever-growing megatrend of health and wellness, more people are discovering the joy to stay outdoors and be in touch with nature. Already in the pre-pandemic world, many were the studies and researchers that confirmed the mental and physical benefits of staying outdoors, such as reducing depression, anxiety, lowering blood pressure, cutting the risk of other disease, and even boosting creativity and cognitive abilities. But exploring the nature and non-urban spaces have become more a meaningful form of escapism throughout quarantine. The first time of the correlation between natural environment and wellness approach has been seen in one of our auto-generated facts. This one, nature plus well-being has grown 64% over the past 18 months. The timeline shows that the word combination has reached higher levels in 2020, and it shows also a stable prediction for the future months. Daniele now can explain a little bit about how the timeline works and how our technology is able to calculate these predictions.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marina. So when dealing with weak signals, we have to make an accurate statistical analysis of the timeline to make sure that we're not just reacting to some noise like a random blip or a spike, but that we're actually instead responding to a real and genuine change in the fundamentals which drive the timeline. And we're able to correctly identify which parts of a given timeline are due to seasonality, which parts are due to a changing trend line, and which parts are instead just statistical noise. This helps us make much more solid predictions about the future, and we can say then how much a curve will rise or fall in the future, and also explain to what extent a rise or fall is due to a changing trend, or whether it is mainly driven by its usual seasonality. So in this specific case, this is a good example of a trend with a somewhat present seasonal pattern, which was approximately stable until 2020, after which it gained an important increasing trend. We are able to accurately separate the trend from its seasonality, such that we can make a good prediction on the next 6 months, which incorporate both why the trend has been growing, as well as its expected seasonal fluctuations. And so what you see there going into the future is basically the combination of the two.
Thank you. And a deeper analysis on the posts that contain nature and well-being in their text show also that the topic's very diffuse among all the analyzed target generations and among our 2 detected gender identities. External sources also confirm that the trend as outdoor activities such as hiking has grown 15%, while national and public park visit were up 68%, according to McKinsey report. And another study conducted by CGPR also reveals that over 82% of the survey participants say they will continue to stay engaged in outdoors activities after restrictions are lifted. So to contextualize this first week signal that we have detected, we selected 2 macro trends from our platform that explain in a deeper and more elaborate way the context, the evolution, and the drivers of change of this emerging behavior. To understand the rise of the evolution of the wellness approach, the trend that we have is the art of mindful living. That shows how the new lifestyle called mindful living emphasizes the slower approach to different aspects of everyday life. It evidences the pleasure of enjoying small things and finding calm by connecting with the present moment that we're living. This phenomenon can be mainly related to the convergence of many remarkable trends that occurred over the past few years, starting from slow food movement boom, and then continue with the rise of mindfulness meditation and the Danish obsession of the so-called hygge. Among the main related tags, different kinds of mindful practice appear, such as meditation, yoga, and breath works. Some of the posts that we highlight here also show a deep connection with the natural environment, with images that express an aspirational mood and that emphasize the medical benefits of these practices. Another driver that has boosted this new approach to wellness on outdoors is explained on our trend of al fresco lifestyle. During the pandemic, people have started bringing the outdoors close to home, practicing at home new outdoors activities such as gardening, and even appreciating more open spaces inside their housebound, such as backyards and balconies. But apart from the physical benefits of staying outdoors, the physical effects should not be overlooked, as both the fear of indoors environment and the need to maintain a sort of social distancing will probably continue to shape our priorities and preferences for a while. This will definitely affect our next chosen activities or products, and will also impact multiple industries such as travel, sport and leisure, design, fashion, tech, and even real estate. This behavior may have been born out of a necessity, but it is likely that more and more people will continue to embrace the outdoor lifestyles in the future. Another emerging micro phenomenon that we have also recently detected is the rising interest in friluftsliv lifestyles. I'm sorry if I said that expression wrong, but it's a Norwegian expression that roughly translated means open air living, and it expressed their commitment to celebrating time outdoors, no matter the weather forecast. This trend related tags, trekking and hiking, as well as forests and wilds, give us some hints about the typology of outdoors activities and environments that are gaining more popularity nowadays. As previously mentioned, many were the recent studies that explore the influence of outdoors in our daily lives. For example, the American Psychiatrists Association has reported that teleworking carries a significant risk of anxiety and stress, and also burnout. And with that in mind, Canada Goose has decided to address to this issue with an interesting initiative called Human Nature Pass. Basically, it's a benefit available to full-time corporate employees. It is 1 hour weekly pass that encourages employees to set aside time during business hours for them to go to outdoors and connect with nature. Also among this team, an insight from our platform that highlights how this micro trend is mostly relevant to a younger generation, as part of them crave more and more for an outside world, outside from and far from digital devices and chaotic cities. In this scenario, the natural land and the soundscape offer them the much needed well-being mindset. So similar to previous timelines, this micro trend has been highly influenced by the pandemic, as it had reached new higher levels after last March. The target analysis shows how this micro trend is very relevant to millennials and Gen Zers, and mainly to women. This data is also confirmed by another interesting phenomenon that we have detected in early 2020, is that according to our community of early adopters, young women are embracing the outdoors like never before. The interest in outdoors activities by young women has sparkled several new initiatives. And here we present two interesting case studies. The first one is Women Who Wander, a social movement that connects Canadian women with one another so they can explore the country, different hiking trails in a more collective and safe way. Another great initiative was made by the outdoor brand Solomon. Apart from having women on every brand department, for its spring 2019, they placed a special emphasis on women hikers, with initiatives that went from advertising campaign to exclusive workshops and even new products range specifically designed for their needs and body shapes. Moving on, now we would like to present some of the top emerging outdoors activities that our AI technology has detected over the past few months, and in which we predict that it will continue to grow in popularity at least for the next 6 months. The first one is obviously walking, as we're not able to go to the gyms and leave our house for only non-essential activities. Walk has become more attractive and more accessible as a physical activity. Interestingly, walking, whether if it was for a natural landscape or just in our neighborhood, has become very popular among younger generations, millennials and Gen Zers, who until recently did not even consider this as a proper physical activity. On a big part of our social media posts that talk about walks, users are always emphasizing it as an important activity for their physical, but also their mental health. Another popular exercise that most of you guys might imagine that has increased in popularity over the past year was hiking. And indeed, our platform confirms that even with some mobility restrictions, posts mentioning hiking has increased in volume, especially during warmer months of the year, and with a growing prediction for the next few months. One of its related insights also present a more niche physical activity, which is gaining more relevance these days. Thanks to its goals, which incorporate not only wellness and outdoors aspects, but also addresses to more sustainable practices. Plogging is the name, and it is the act of cleaning the environment while practicing sports, and it has scored a lot of attention over the past year and a half. The third emerging activity is called forest bathing, or in Japanese, shinrin-yoku. Developed in 1980s in Japan, forest bathing is not only about walks in the park. It is simply being in the nature, connecting with it through our senses of sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. Aside from the pure physical benefits of walking, forest bathing also helps to reduce blood pressure, blood sugar levels, lift depression, improve sleeping quality, boost immune system, and improve concentration. The activity has been adopted more and more in the Western culture, with organizations and hospitality brands recently including it in their services and programs. Another interesting phenomenon is spotted by our platform is the rising interest in bird watching. So safely to do it while wearing masks and being social distancing, bird watching has been shifting from a niche and elderly driven activity to a practice that is becoming more appealing to a younger generation. So now we have arrived to the section about accessible winter adventures for new and old enthusiasts. In this chapter, we are going to deep dive specifically in some of the winter activities that have been attracting both targets. So as previously mentioned, the pandemic has been reshaping the way we move and enjoy the mountains. As mobility restrictions are extended, these has been affecting the access for many of our most famous winter activities, those who were mainly done in ski parks and resorts. And therefore, old and new outdoorsies are looking for alternative ways to recreate their favorite activities while staying physically distant and virus safe. So for this section, we have identified two auto-generated facts that evidence these two different phenomena. The first one regards the outdoors new enthusiasts, those who have recently discovered its health benefits, but also the pleasure of enjoying open space adventures. The tag open outdoors adventures has grown expressively among our community of city dwellers, having a 222% rise in the past 1.5 years. People who are posting this kind of content are mainly millennial women that are describing their new outdoors adventures such as hiking and biking, even during the colder seasons. On the other hand, we also have noticed that our outdoorsy community has become more interested in exploring new paths. After a constant growth since January 2019, our AI technology predicts that the tag explore among outdoorsies will grow at least 12% for the next 6 months. And then Dani now can explain a little bit how we are able to make this kind of predictions.
Yeah, so this actually goes back to something I was talking about earlier, which is what we basically do is study this timeline, and then we strip the individual elements that compose it. So first of all, you can see that there's a little bit of zigzaggedy noise, and we remove that noise and we detect what seasonality we sort of detect in this timeline. Once we remove this seasonality, we can actually confidently state that there is a growing trend line. And so then when we reintroduce the things that we stripped away, such as the seasonality and the growing trend line, then we can extrapolate this for a 6-month period going forward. And we can then basically visually state that the growth in the coming 6 months is expected to be 12% compared to the current 6 months.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Dani. So similar to the previous data analysis, the main target consists mainly on millennials and Gen X and women who share the experience of backcountry activities and they're planning for their next explorative adventures. To contextualize or to describe more this new phenomenon, we're going to present our Macrotrend experiential season. It explains how, even during the pre-pandemic year, our perception of seasonality and environment restrictions have become more blurred. Thanks to the new technologies on gears and gadgets and technical apparels that have enabled us to enjoy more the different types of seasons, regardless the extreme environments or temperatures. Contextualizing it to our current situation, we have seen how this is helping new outdoors enthusiasts and winter sports aficionados to find new solutions for a COVID-free physical exercise or for the closure of many European ski parks, entertaining themselves with new alternative activities that move away from traditional mainstream downhill and downhill snowboarding and skiing. The timeline shows how the phenomenon was already being explored in the last year winter seasons, but has grown even more this year. So, as I mentioned, as many resorts are restricting or closing their operations this winter, consumers are spending less on their purchase of ski and snowboard passes and instead finding new ways to enjoy the outdoors activities, especially in the backcountry environment. In this context, we have noticed a recent rise of several uphill activities among our community of early adopters, or else activities that don't require the use of ski lifts, such as snowshoeing and cross-country skiing. This is mainly a cross-generational interest in this kind of activity and mainly in English-speaking countries. And indeed, a recent report that RAI Cop, a major outdoor recreation retailer, did confirms the rise of snowshoe sale and cross-country ski gear. For those who are not familiar with this kind of winter activities, snowshoeing is about walking or hiking over snow with the help of gear that distributes the person's weight over a larger area so that their feet do not sink completely into the snow. According to a recent article from the New York Times, snowshoeing tends to be accessible for both in terms of expenses and skills. So it doesn't require a class or even a demonstration to master as downhill skiing usually does. It's also the perfect activity for beginners as it doesn't require complex and expensive gears. There's no specific boots or poles, and poles are actually optional. And finally, many experts say that it's a family-friendly activity because it doesn't require special skills, so it suits all ages. Another interesting alternative activity is cross-country skiing, also known as Nordic skiing. So experts say that it has been growing popularity because it attracts a wide cross-section of people, including hikers who are looking for a way to get outdoors in winter times, snowshoers who want to have a more smoothly through the landscape, and downhill skiers looking for a more serene practice. Less beginner-friendly activities have been also rising as many downhill skiers and snowboarding have been willing to discover new ways to enjoy this very restrictive winter season. Explorers are sacrificing their comfort of ski resorts for a more adventurous experience, even if it means wearing a backpack and carrying for their own safety. Looking at our data, we can assure that this is a phenomenon that is predicted to gain more popularity in the next few months, mainly among millennials and Gen X, generations that have already some years of experience in winter sport, and especially by men. Following the rise of backcountry skiing, there's also the rise of splitboarding, which is the backcountry version of downhill snowboarding. Due to the rising interest in backcountry activities, avalanche safety courses have also been considerable rise on the number of participant requests. In preparation for this season, several organizations and brands are hosting online avalanche awareness sessions with professionals guiding for the public. These free avalanche awareness programs are mainly based on the learning about the destructive powers of avalanche, understanding when and why they happen, and how they can have fun in the mountains while avoiding them. So besides the avalanche safety courses, accessories and additional gears are also essential for this kind of adventure. Some examples of recently released backcountry gears are Milo Action and Communicator and Garmin's InReach Mini that provide a safer and more efficient way to communicate with others and to send safety alerts to friends and family. Skis Case 2 is another concept equipment that provides explorers a more different and adventurous way to play in the backcountry snowy environments. And the two last, Vulcan Iguchi Slack Vest and Snow Wonder Pulse Clinometer, are analogic accessories that help explorers to have a safer and more comfortable journey. Before we move on to our third and last session, we would like to show how in this past year, health micro tracking features across wearable brands have become more mainstream. In a bigger picture, the micro trend has been stable for the past few years, but has gained more importance last year with new needs and requested features to the current health crisis. Focusing on winter sports, snow technology and safety are inseparable combination, and therefore, instead of focusing on smartwatches, winter sports and tech brands are incorporating more and more smart monitoring technologies into the snowboarders and skis traditional gear and apparel. A great example is the boom sector of smart goggles. And here are just some of examples that, that were recently launched. Most high-tech ski goggles integrate a real-time display that offer analysis of the speed and altitude. And some of them also feature GPS that can map and video record routes on the slope. Aside from smart goggles, a whole range of other accessories and gears is being launched, aiming to communicate, record, bringing comfort, monitoring, and even improve people's performance. The first one is a helmet that can detect impact, send GPS signal in case of emergency, but also record audio and video and even receive phone calls. The second example is a winter jacket and ski pants that integrate a heating system that guarantees a constant temperature. Then the other three examples are smart gears dedicated to evaluate ski movements and to help improve users' techniques. Now we move on to our last session where we highlight how sustainability is being addressed by the winter sports sector. For outdoorsies and winter sports enthusiasts, the natural environment is their playground. It's where they practice their hobbies or their beloved activities. And therefore, protecting it is so crucial for this target. With that in mind, sustainability is now at the core of this consumer demand, pushing the gear, accessory, and apparel manufacturers, but also the travel and hospitality sector to rethink their practices and business models. We start this section with a recent published evidence that explains how the term sustainability have been constantly growing since 2018 among our community of sports lovers, with a special 30% rise over the past year and a half. Indeed, since way before 2018, winter sports athletes have been pioneering in advocating for climate action. And before the 2014 Winter Olympics, 75 decorated Olympic skiing and snowboarding medalists wrote to President Barack Obama calling for more ambitious actions on climate change. And thanks to them, sustainability nowadays has been incorporated as one of the main three pillars of the 2020 Olympic agenda. Taking a look at the post examples, we can also see that minor events such as this lucky ski game have been addressing to the theme, creating a more sustainable sport event. Speaking specifically about the target, a great example of initiative that is addressing to this issue of sustainability, but more specifically to climate change, is Protect Our Winter. So PAO is a nonprofit that focuses its efforts on legislation regarding climate change. Its volunteers are outdoors enthusiasts, mainly athletes, and their goal is to achieve carbon neutrality in 2050. Even though the community of the outdoorsy and winter sports lovers are very active in demanding more sustainable initiatives by the companies that produce their gear and apparel, we have noticed that most of them go along the same pace as any other brand from other industries. Putting in a macro context, what we have been observing over the past few years is a shift from creating or producing new gears or apparels that are more sustainable to instead looking to products that were already produced and helping them to have a longer lifespan and life cycle. This is at the core of our macro trend circular future. In this trend, we explain how verbs such as renew, reuse, recycle, reissue have been popping up more and more on our early adopter social media posts lately. These words are linguistic signs of the birth of circular economy. Circular economy focuses on the continual use of materials and products as well as regeneration of natural resources. In the system, waste becomes the primary source for another process or application and therefore closing the loop of production models. This macro trend has grown in popularity since the beginning of 2018, and after a year of stabilization between 2019 and 2020, it has been regrowing since last July. Apart from the verbs with prefix re, the most related tags also evidence some of the emerging sustainable practices, such as thrifting, upcycling, and buying secondhand. One of the pioneers and still one of the most relevant brands when talking about sustainable initiatives is Patagonia. After opening its first pop-up stores entirely dedicated to its warm wear products and its Recraft collection, clothes made from upcycling materials, Patagonia is now promoting once again sustainability by educating its customers on how to prolong the life of their products. Throughout a partnership with iFix, Patagonia customers can learn basic sewing techniques as well as advanced repairing methods. Oh no, and also thinking about the winter sport newcomers and the activities seasonality, one of the most famous clothing retail startups, Rent the Runway, which is the best known source for renting designer clothes for formal events, added athlete leisure and ski apparel to its renting collection in the late 2019. The concept of seasonless or timeless has been rethought throughout the pre-pandemic years and the past few months. As we will see here with the microtrend, brands have been rediscovering the positive and more sustainable side of creating more timeless and seasonless products. The related tags presented several keywords that not only expand the concept, but also suggest possible touch points for this phenomena, such as bespoke, handcrafts, and craftsmanship. Related insight also shows a kind of reflection of this trend, as it explains how made-to-order models is rising in fashion as an antidote to production and wasted inventory. In the winter sport sector specifically, an interesting case study is the brand Season Equipment. The brand was founded by two former professional athletes who have decided that they are going to make timeless ski and snowboard models, all built to last. All their products have a black top sheets, which will stay the same every year, as you can see in the images, and will come with a built-in maintenance plan, which will provide free tuning and waxing to their products. So the brand plan is to change the footprint and lifespan of its products and to share this responsibility between brands, the brand itself, which will break the new gear every year product cycle, the shop that will provide the aftercare services to maintain the product for life, and the user who will theoretically hold their gear for a longer period of time. The last micro phenomenon that we would like to present right now moves a little bit away from the circular economy concept, but is also seen as a very fertile territory for brands, for specific innovative winter recreation brands to tackle. It is how biomaterials and their applications are constantly multiplying in different industries. This micro trend has surged in popularity in the last 6 months, and it has been very popular among the different targets, our different targets, especially if we focus on interests and lifestyles and values and targets. Daniele, can you comment a little bit of how we identify these user interests and values?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just remind you a second that we have this huge pool of insiders from which we get all our insights and information, and this is a manually curated set of users. And what we noticed is that they fall into large distinct categories, broadly speaking, which are often related to their interests or consumer behaviors. And apart from obvious labels that you could assign to users, such as their age or things like that, there are other attributes that are more related to the kind of things that they post, so the images and the texts. So it could be that they love the outdoors, or they could be music connoisseurs, they love to party, or maybe in this case you can see tech geeks. We identified these sort of macro clusters of interests and behaviors. They could be also here, as you see in the values, there are some that are more eco-conscious, others that may be more interested in social issues, or some that are more focused on self-care. And once we've identified these groups, then it's a relatively straightforward task of assigning to each user how much they belong to each group by just studying the sort of text and images that they post. And the only thing to do at that point is to periodically reassess the categories to make sure that if new consumer groups emerge in the future, we catch those as well.
Okay, perfect. So to finish this, I will just present two interesting case studies about this biomaterial microphenomenon. The first one is a project from Checker Spot microalgae vital ski. So after the biotech startup created plastic from microalgae, which replicates the properties of petroleum-based plastic, they have been testing it in outdoors recreation products. So over the past 2 years, the company has been collaborated with Wonder, launching 3 models of ski boards with this new biomaterial. By applying this technology, the company was able to eliminate 2 pounds of landfill-bound plastic waste per ski. And the final project was developed by Grown Skins. So instead of using non-renewable fiber made of glass or carbon, the company used 100% industrial hemp fiber. And why is that? Because hemp fiber captures carbon dioxide and contributed to the greenhouse effect caused by climate change. So according to their website, this new hemp technology decreases the environment footprint of skis by about 47% compared to the conventional high quality skis. Beyond the skis and snowboards themselves, one of the dirtiest players in the winter sports is also wax. Skis and snowboard waxes are essential for the gear's performance, as it helps to maximize the speed and performance on the loops. There are many options on the market, but most of them use chemicals that are toxic to vegetation and wildlife. They are also bad for our own health, with links to liver and cardiovascular damage. So in order to resolve this problem, several greener wax options are popping up on the market. So to wrap up this presentation, we would like to present some of our suggestions for possible actionable insights. So the first 2 main parts regard mostly the brands that are from other industries that are also interested to tackling into this new outdoor mindset. For them, we suggest investing in bringing the Mountainlife aesthetic to products and communication, expanding collaboration with outdoor brands to bring more buzz, targeting new consumers and new enthusiasts, especially city dwellers and young women, producing kits for beginners and educational content as key points. On the right, we can also see some suggestions that concern more outdoor recreation and winter sports companies that are interested in keeping up with the fast changing and ever growing market. So for them, we suggest to expand product range, especially for uphill and backcountry winter sports, keep in mind the rise of smart gears and devices that address safety and high performance, incorporate alternative recycled and biomaterial in gears and apparels, and adopt upcycling or repair initiatives, as well as timeless classical aesthetic on their products, and finally commit to longer sustainable practices. So now we have a few minutes to answer some of the questions that have arrived to us during the presentation. Let's see the questions. So the first one is from Daniel. Thanks, Daniel. You said that in the beginning of the presentation that it's a curated community of insiders. So how do you select these insiders? Daniele, can you explain us a little bit how we select our insiders?
Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, what is the definition of an insider for us? You could think it's maybe somebody who knows something that others don't about a specific topic, or maybe somebody who's extremely well connected with professionals within their field. And for us, our insiders are typically both, but this is not the guiding principle by which we determine whether they should or should not participate in our insider community. And that's because our platform is primarily based on making predictions. So our insiders are basically measured on how good they are precisely that. And by which I mean how ahead of the mainstream they are when dealing with the topics that they are knowledgeable in. So by measuring how ahead of the curve each user is, we are then able to rank the insiders. And if they pass a certain threshold, they just become part of our community. And so by doing this, we effectively collect a sort of a large group of bellwethers, so early indicators, which together in aggregate form a good pool from which you can make stable predictions for the future. It's like a community-driven prediction system where you only listen to the best oracles, so to say. And so all we have to do is measure how good they were in the past at being ahead of the curve.
Okay, I think there's also another question for you by Ain. You show relevant countries for some of the trends. So how you obtain the location associated to your trends?
Yeah, so nearly all social media users are primarily located in a specific country and often in a specific city. But not necessarily always. So when we say that a trend is particularly associated with a country such as Australia, what we mean is that there are many posts related to this trend that come from Australian insiders. So of course, the number of social media users from the US is very large compared to other countries with smaller populations. So we make sure to take this into account when specifying the location. And so what you see in our trends is which countries are particularly overrepresented by that by a given trend. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks. There's one question from Marco. Do you think all these trends you've presented will continue to be relevant once the pandemic crisis settles down? That I think I can answer. I think the pandemic only accelerated a lot of trends that were already here or were already happening in the pre-pandemic times. Many of the trends that we see today or that we presented today, particular those regarding sustainability and the interest for new activities, the timeline shown that they were already growing before the pandemic. So it's not, and we'll see, and the prediction shows that in the near future will continue to stay relevant for us. But I think that, as I mentioned before in the trends, many of our habits and hobbies have changed during the lockdown. And I think for a big part of us, these hobbies won't we're not gonna change ourselves once, or we're not gonna turn to the old normal once the pandemic is over. So yes, I can assure that some of this, many of these trends that we presented today will last for a longer period of time. Do we have other questions? No.
Actually, there are still a couple of questions that have been unanswered, but since time is running out, we will answer to the remaining questions by email. And by the way, just to conclude, I would say that tomorrow you will receive an email with a link if you want to review this the recording of this presentation, and also a link if you want to get the full report related to this future of outdoor. Of course, we know that there are questions that cannot be solved through a general presentation as the one that we have made today. Usually business questions may be related to your brand strategy, to your go-to-market strategy, intelligence and M&A, understanding what's going on in the market, or maybe understanding the evolutions of specific target audiences. For all of these questions, of course, we invite you to submit us your briefs and your questions in general, and of course we will be glad to answer and to set up a call to go more in depth. So far, thank you everybody for the participation. Thank you to Marina, Daniele, Elena for this session, and see you for the next webinar. Stay safe. Bye.